as we kick off a new legislative session. What do you see? Are we going to all be singing Kumbaya over there, or is there going to be a little bit of infighting as we've seen the last couple of years?
Well, I think there's always going to be dialogue. I won't call it infighting.
Dialogue's a good word.
I'm going to call it dialogue because that's the founding when the government was set up, that was one of the purposes of two chambers. It was for one to balance the other, and that brings safety to all of our constituents to know that the Senate and the House see things a little differently sometimes depending on the leadership, and so I think it's a really good thing because it does cause you to have to sit down at a table and talk with other people who may have the same goal but maybe have a little different way of getting there, and that's a good thing. As
you start this session, the tax reform that everybody was excited about, we're starting this session, and all of a sudden the coffers in the state are a little light, and the money has not come in like it was predicted. Of course, we're still waiting for fourth quarter revenues to be posted with sales taxes. But the budgeting is going to – everybody was hoping this year would be an easier year budgeting-wise, but it's not going to be the case, is it? It's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Henry, I think I don't think there's going to be any more easy budget sessions. I really don't, whether it's the long session or the short session, because, we as conservatives are trying to only take the amount of money that we absolutely need from the citizens of this state to run this government. And so, we need to always be diligent looking for ways to allow them to keep more of their money. I'm going to be very optimistic and say when the April surprise comes in that it's going to be on the positive side. I think so. If not, then we'll go back to the consultation tables and we will see where we need to do what we need to do and how we need to do it, because I'm a firm believer that we can only spend what we bring in. We can't borrow a lot of money. We can't print money. And, it's the general attitude in this General Assembly is to not go back and take any more money from the folks. We're going in the other direction.
And, of course, Medicaid expansion is going to be on the table again. The question about what to do with Medicaid. Medicaid might be the single largest financial problem that the state faces. And, on one side you hear people say those darn Republicans won't expand Medicaid and all these poor people need it, and it's becoming unfair at this point. And then on the other side, you look at it's part of all of the entire Obamacare package, and the federal government has come in and said we're going to help you to get started, but down the road there's no guarantees that the federal government's going to do anything to help, and that could put the state in bankruptcy if you're not careful.
Well, let me give you a prime example. Ray was on with you a few minutes ago, and we're facing a crisis situation right now in our port in Morehead City.
Just talking about
because the federal government has cut the funding. In fact, they've just about eliminated the funding. We did get some emergency funding to try and keep our port open, but that's not guaranteed. And from here after, who knows? And so now we as the state, we have to sit down and have a very in-depth conversation about how we're going to maintain our port system. If we want to, we can turn it into a big marina, or we can keep it open for the revenue that it's going to bring into this state. And so depending on the federal government for anything that they promise you in the future, I think it's just grabbing at stars. And so, it may come and it may not.
So you're not optimistic that we'll actually see any real substantial effort to expand Medicaid?
I think expansion is on the table, because I know that there are people that are falling through the cracks that need this help. I know that, we had some very good conversations with our hospitals over the last couple of weeks. Our hospitals are going to have to treat these patients whether there's any return on what they have to do. And so we do need to look at that. But the key point in Medicaid has always been dependability on how much it's going to cost the state. The Senate tends to go one way, where we want to put that responsibility on outside resources or outside entity. The House is kind of saying the other way. I think there's somewhere in the middle that we're going to meet, but it's time to sit down and bring this conversation to an end and do what we're going to do with Medicaid, and then just go forth with it.
Senator Norm Sanderson, the gentleman who represents Craven, Pamlico, and Carteret counties in the North Carolina Senate, and this place is getting ready to rock and roll. The next few months here right on this street are going to be pretty busy. What's on your agenda? What do you want to see done in the 2015 session?
Well, I think any of us coming into Raleigh this morning, we're going to be looking at the budget process. We have to get that. That's our primary purpose, to be in Raleigh at all, is to set the budget for this state. And I hope that we can do this and meet the deadline before July 1st so that our counties and our municipalities don't have to go into their budget cycle not knowing what's going to happen. I would love to see some kind of a shift in calendars so that we have a little extra time and they're not totally dependent, right up, to bring them right up to the day and them not knowing. That's not fair to them. And so we'll do the budget. We'll do the Medicaid. We're still going to look at regulatory reform, and we'll look at more tax reform because that's an ongoing process. I think when you set a bar for tax reform or regulatory reform, you reach that bar, you need to raise the bar, and you need to go for the next step. And so those are your major issues, Henry. We've got some special issues in eastern North Carolina, as you well know. I'm really going to be working on property insurance for our coastal residents. I think one of the best things that happened to us was that our insurance commissioner this year shifted some of the increases for property tax to the western part of the state, which I think makes us natural allies now. And so we can really come together and sit down at the table and have this conversation. And so we're going to be working on that. The ports, as we were mentioning a few minutes ago, we've got to have some dedicated funding to keep our ports open because that is very crucial to eastern North Carolina.
Well, I'm glad Ray has made us aware of that. Boy, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I mean, it sounds like we're very close to being shut down at the North Carolina Morehead City port. Well, because of all the shoaling problems. Now, we hear about Oregon Inlet all the time, but we haven't heard much about this in Morehead City, so this is a big deal.
No, it is a big deal. And when you sit in these meetings and you hear these captains that bring these ships in and out, and they're having to do coming into the port, follow channels that look like an earthworm trail, that's not what we need in our port.
Yeah.
And so it is a difficult situation. And face it, we've got the people that are using our ports right now. They have got to, at some point, start, and they already are, I know, looking for other places, other opportunities, other alternatives, because they can't. PCS Phosphate can't continue to download their barges and lose millions of dollars just because they like Morehead City. They're in a business and they're competing internationally, and they have to cut their costs.
No doubt. I would be in real trouble if I didn't bring up the autism bill, because our friend Kyle Robinson sent me an email last night, and of course, last year there was a real push, and one of the folks that really was instrumental in getting it done was East Carolina basketball coach Kyle Robinson, who has an autistic son. The House passed the bill. The Senate, it never really got a reasonable hearing in the Senate. And I know you've been a champion and a very helpful person to the Robinsons and to other families with autistic children. Do you think that's going to get an opportunity to come back this year and be heard?
Kyle, Henry, I really do. And I so enjoy sitting down and talking with Kyle, and he's an amazing young man and what his family's been through. And I think that you're going to see movement on that this year. I really do. I think that the Senate is going to look at that, along maybe with some reform on those things with insurance as far as what we require insurance companies to do. If I think Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is the primary carrier in this state, is willing to sit down at the table with us and talk about this. But that's one of the things that we need to help families in all over this state with.
Well, you've been great to help with that and so many other things. You're doing a great job. I hear about rising stars in Raleigh. Norm Sanderson's name comes up all the time, and we're very happy that you're an Eastern North Carolina senator and doing a great job of representing some of our listening areas in the state down around the coastal area. So thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you, Henry. Thank you for what you do for Eastern North Carolina, keeping us informed. And you know, this is all about serving the people in this state and in our district, and that's what excites me. It's being out there with the people, hearing what concerns them, and trying to move in a direction that's going to help them.
Senator Norm Sanderson, one of the nice guys, one of the real nice guys in the North Carolina legislature. Thank you, my friend.
It's good to see you, Henry.
Good to
Got
see
another
you.
nice guy coming up here now.
You're already sucking up to the new speaker.
Yeah, I'm sucking up to the new speaker. I know it's not going to get me anywhere, but it's good to see him here this morning.